Joining us now for World Brief and the review of some of the headlines of today's newspapers from around the world is Bimbai Mutinhiri Ekuyong, the celebrated Niger wife from Akwa Ibom. Good morning.
Cross River State.
Oh, you are from Cross River?
Yes, okay. Although we are one.
Northern Cross River, right?
South. Cross River South,
is it South?
actually. Yes, it's South.
Oh, okay.
Odupani.
I
even know my village.
Area.
Yes.
You are from our country.
Yes, I am. Good morning, Dr. Mati. Good morning, Ayo. Good morning, Rufai.
How's it going?
Oh, it's going great. Let's get straight into it. Of course, we always want to leave enough time to chat. We kick off with news from the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting as King Charles acknowledged the painful aspects of Britain's past while sidestepping calls to directly address reparations for slavery at the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting. And he said, none of us can change the past, but we can commit to learning its lessons. So King Charles was speaking to leaders representing 56 Commonwealth nations at the summit in the Pacific nation of Samoa, his first time attending the summit since taking the throne. There have been calls from some African and Caribbean nations for Britain and other European powers to pay financial compensation for slavery. The Brattle Group report estimates that if Britain were to pay, the estimated figure to be paid would be £18 trillion. Questions around this is who would this money go to? Now, on a side note, still on the Commonwealth, of course, we do know that Nigeria was supposed to be represented by the Vice President. However, his aircraft suffered a glitch to the windshield, I believe, en route via New York. My question is, I'm not sure how New York is on the way to the Pacifics. That's another conversation. We now turn our attention to the United States, where prosecutors have recommended resentencing Lyle and Eric Menendez for the murder of their parents after new evidence emerged of sexual abuse by their father. The brothers have been behind bars for 34 years, serving life sentences for shooting their father and mother in their home in Beverly Hills, California, in a notorious case that was recently the subject of a documentary film. Many people have seen it on Netflix. Now, they were sentenced in 1996 to life in prison without the possibility of parole for the 1989 killings. Los Angeles County District Attorney George Gaskin said on Thursday that his office will recommend the brothers' sentences be rescinded and they be resentenced to 50 years to life. So because they were under 20 years old at the time of the crimes, they will be eligible for parole immediately. So the brothers, of course, confessed to killing their parents because they were scared that their parents were actually plotting to kill them to stop people from discovering that their father, Jose, had been sexually abusing his son, Eric. Very talked about case and trial, so now we wait to see whether they will regain freedom. Now, last but surely not least, as you make your plans to Jakwa, remember this, Canada has announced that it will cut immigration by 20% in 2025 by scaling back on targets for admissions of permanent residents and temporary residents. Prime Minister Trudeau and Immigration Minister Mark Miller said on Thursday this was an effort to pause population growth, a shift that comes as public support for immigration in Canada generally declines. The announcement comes after the Canadian population surged to 41 million. This is a rise largely fueled by an unprecedented wave of new arrivals. The Immigration Ministry had previously planned to let 500,000 new permanent residents settle in the country in 2025 and 2026, but the new targets were revised down to 395,000 next year and 380,000 for 2026, 365,000 for 2027. And this reduction is said to be able to pause population growth in Canada over the next 2 years, giving provinces time to catch up on bolstering their healthcare programs and housing stock.
Today, we're announcing that we will reduce the number of immigrants we bring in over the next 3 years, which will result in a pause in the population growth over the next 2 years.
All right, well, that's what we have on our international brief this morning. Rufai.
So the problem is not really immigration. The problem is the bad economy in Canada post-COVID. Trudeau had a lot of momentum. COVID came, destroyed the economic prospects, rent numbers went up, unemployment numbers went up. A lot more people are jostling for smaller resource. It is so bad now that the opposition party in Canada is leading in the polls. If they were to have elections today, the Conservatives definitely will blow out the Liberals. In fact, 20 lawmakers from the Liberal had to tell Trudeau that you have to go, that we don't see a path for you taking us through the next election. So it's all economy. And what are they doing? Because the public zeitgeist is no longer in favor of immigration, because they feel the influx of people are fighting with them over the little resource. They've not been able to expand housing stock, healthcare stocks across the provinces and things like that. So the next thing, they're trying to reduce the numbers. The projection initially for immigration numbers was supposed to be 500,000. Now they've released to well over 385,000 thereabout, because of the massive economic problems. And Trudeau is well on his way out because he's lost support. He's picking all sorts of fights he ought not to pick with the Indians and the Khalistani movement and all of that. And the public zeitgeist against him, he's doing very badly in the polls. 28% to about 35% that the Conservatives are having. So probably is well on his way out. He's done it for 9 years. He got there 2015. This might just be the beginning of the end for him. I yield the floor.
All right. Well, Trudeau has been very open about this, saying it's a political decision, that they have an election to win. So if that means some immigration reform, then absolutely. But of course, I understand why this is very big for us, because a number of people would be interested in just how much they reduce. But they haven't reduced the highly skilled route. So they're still looking for the most skilled, but looking to temper immigration in Canada over the next few years. But let me go on to the Commonwealth. And of course, you know, I'll take on that story. Since yesterday, I'd only spoken about, was it 2 days ago, genocide in Rwanda, and talking about how for the history, you cannot erase history. In fact, what a number of people have done is to acknowledge what's happened, and in some ways, there's repatriation. 18.8 trillion pounds is what is being asked for in terms of payment of repatriation and an apology. But the UK government stance had always been no apology, no repatriation paid. Rishi Sunak had that stance. Keir Starmer also made this known just a few days back, and King Charles has also echoed the position of the government in saying that they were not going to pay any amount of money, because really and truly it would open it's first of all admittance. What a number of people have said, including the UN judge who was co-author of that report that said $18.8 trillion, is that it's a moral and legal issue from the UK's point of view. And the Labour Party is divided in that way. Some backbenchers are saying that the UK should be open to conversations around this, especially if it comes up at the Commonwealth. Because there are some people who say that the effects of slavery, the effects of colonization are still affecting them years and years afterwards. And the UK has a responsibility to pay for some of the crimes and the ills that it did to the people. So what they're asking for is an apology and repatriation. Even if they're not going to pay the amount of money, like you said, who's going to get the money? How will they begin to identify who to pay the sums to? But at least an apology or an acknowledgement of the pain and the suffering they imposed on people years and years ago through slavery and through, you know, the effects of colonization. I don't know how long, but this conversation is not over at all. I think it's still going to come up again and again. Also, just to note that the Commonwealth, 2 countries were noticeably missing, aside from Nigeria. And maybe the president decided that it's such a long trip, or the vice president, such a long trip. Let me break it by stopping in New York, and then I'll go on to
back to New York instead of forwards to Australia.
So but 2 countries are not there as well. South Africa is in there, Cyril Ramaphosa, and one other country, because they're at BRICS. They chose to go to BRICS rather than honor the invitation of the UK government for the Commonwealth.
Okay, the issue with Nigeria not going for the Commonwealth was there was an issue with the vice president aircraft in Washington, New
JFK,
York,
New York.
JFK airport, the windshield of the airport, of the aircraft. Otherwise, the vice president of Nigeria will have been there. This consideration is safety. But to go straight to the Commonwealth issue, yes, the King Charles III is saying that, look, yes, we have to acknowledge history and we have to face it up front. But, you know, he didn't go as far as talking about reparations. And his position is similar to that of the, the government of Great Britain. He is saying that we have to focus on future challenges, and that members of the Commonwealth, they have the right to make decisions about their own future. After all, Australia and Jamaica are saying that, look, they don't want the king to be their king anymore. Last week, the king was attacked by Senator Lydia Thorpe, who said, "You are not my king," on the platform, of the House of Parliament in Canberra, in Australia. So today, the king speaks, but the king is going to acknowledge all the challenges, but he's not going to talk about reparation. But Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves are more upfront about this. They're saying, look, the apology has been offered before. England is not going to offer any new apology. We have to embrace our history. but they offer what they call reparatory justice. Reparatory justice in this regard, meaning that members of the Commonwealth, 56 countries, in total, the Caribbeans leading this rebellion for reform, that they could get debt relief, they could get restructuring of institutions. It depends on where you stand on this matter. When the Queen died, there was also this, protest from the Commonwealth. But the bigger challenge, in my view, for the Commonwealth is how to, reform the Commonwealth to make it a more effective platform in the face of changing geopolitics. Because geopolitics is changing. Either you look at the US side and its Western allies, or you look at the emerging, axis of new superpowers being put together by North Korea, Iran, China, and Russia, which is also an emerging concern in geopolitics. To go to Canada. In 2023, Canada's population increased by 1.2 million, taking it beyond 40 million, the highest population growth since 1957. Now, Canada became a very attractive destination since 2015 because the Liberal Party, Trudeau's party, campaigned on the platform of attracting migration, contrary to what you have in the European Union, where far-right parties are taking over in many of the countries because of anti-migration sentiments. Different from what you have in the United States, where Republican candidate Donald Trump is saying that, migrants are responsible for crime and disorder, eating cats and dogs, in parts of America. And now, what Canada has found itself having to deal with is that there was a poll that was conducted. And then the poll says, well, this is good. We welcome migrants to address labor issues, aging labor workforce, but as desirable as this is, it is creating problems. What is the problematic that the Canadians are talking about? Housing cost has gone up. There's competition for jobs as a result of these, migrants coming in. Well. So that's why the cut that you have described come up. So the population growth is going to reduce by 0.2% specifically within the next 3 years. Okay. But it's not only permanent residents that are affected. Temporary residents, like international students, who were projected at about 800,000 for this year alone, that figure has been reduced also for the next 3 years. So many Nigerian students who want to go and study in Canada and get citizenship or residency as a result are affected. And that's why I think the Canadian experience, affects us directly also here in Nigeria. So migration as an important subject. But do all Canadians support it? No. There are Canadians who say, we still want these people to come because they will bolster the workforce. As the Menendez brothers, it will take a while. It's not automatic. There are family members who are fighting, pro and anti. But Netflix documentary brought new evidence, and Gascon, the Attorney General, the District Attorney for Los Angeles, says, well, they will look at this matter and see. So nothing definite yet. All right. But it's on the table.
We'll keep our eyes on that. Let's now turn our attention to matters here at home. Of course, we begin our newspaper review with This Day newspaper that leads with a headline above the masthead, which is saying, contrary to reports that did the rounds yesterday, CBN has spoken. There is no retirement date for old Naira banknotes. They remain legal tender indefinitely. Of course, yesterday there was so many messages that were shared concerning some notes being phased out. It is untrue. So, of course, the report is also there on the VP's travel issues whilst en route to Commonwealth head of government meeting. And last but not least, Enugu has approved 80,000 Naira as minimum wage in that state, joining states like Rivers State, who have increased their minimum wage to 85,000. Let's move to Daily Trust newspaper, which is leading with austerity measures from the government as President Tinubu limits ministers' convoys to 3 vehicles. CSOs have responded to the president by asking him to lead by example. And, well, the World Bank offers a 4-point plan to reduce government spending. Also on Daily Trust is news that Nigeria has joined BRICS as a partner country, not as a full member. Now to Punch newspaper. The Senate has okayed 15% states funding for regional development commissions. Remember, there was a heated debate about how these development commissions were going to be funded. One would think that they would come from the states themselves. However, the states do not want their budgets reduced. So this 15% will come from the Consolidated Revenue Fund. Now to the Guardian newspaper that's looking at a number of issues. Austerity is there. Military intervention is also there. However, I'll pick the helicopter crash that happened in Port Harcourt yesterday. Of course, you discussed this as NSIB begins the probe as the search continues for the missing passengers. Of course, we do send our condolences to those who have lost their lives. Now, the New Telegraph newspaper leads with the statement on banknotes from the CBN. However, there is a reaction to the appointment of Bianca Ojukwu into cabinet from the Anambra APC, who are saying that her appointment belittles party loyalty. That's from the APC in Anambra State. All right, let's now turn our attention to South Africa. Citizen South Africa is focusing on some cracks within the government of national unity. But apart from that, this week, the nation woke up to news of a divorce from Springboks rugby captain Siya Kolisi to his sweetheart Rachel Kolisi. And of course, the entire nation is still discussing this issue at length. To Kenya now, to the Star newspaper, where thousands have rejected a 7-year term limit bill. This was proposed law that was to elongate tenures for the president, senators, MPs, MCAs, and governors to 7 years. In short, the people have said never, ever, no, no, no. Good one for Kenya. Now, internationally, New York Times. New York Times is taking a look at how Kamala Harris is hunting for white votes in the working class because this is where she's polling the lowest. So there's now a last-minute attempt to win the hearts of the white working class. To the Daily Telegraph now in the UK, as Brits await the budget, which is coming next week, Reeves has warned that over £50 billion debt fiddle with fears of rising mortgage costs as the Chancellor rewrites the borrowing rules. So, very brief comments because we've got a lot of stories there.
There's no time. I yield the floor.
Oh, you can
No, I yield the
reply.
floor. No, I yield. You guys can have a talk.
It's been said that Nigeria has enjoyed quite some funds from BRICS nation, up by 189%, I think. So this perhaps might be an incentive. But beyond that, last year, November, I recall that the Minister of Foreign Affairs had said that Nigeria was looking to be a member of not just BRICS, but also G20, that we have the numbers in terms of our population, but also our economic potential. So G20 after BRICS, we're not full members, by the way, like you said, just partners, but maybe G20 also up next for Nigeria.
Well, 2 quick points. The story you took from Punch, President Tinubu reducing convoy and aid, I thought that was in place, a monetization policy for vehicles, for ministers and public officials. What happened to that monetization policy? Because the allowances for cars, are supposed to be embedded in the salaries of ministers and public officials. So that's a question to ask in that regard. Why are they getting official cars? And very quickly, Mozambique. Daniel Chapo has been declared winner of the election. He's, succeeding the president, President Felipe Nyusi, who has completed his 2 terms. He won with 71% of the votes.
A landslide.
Podemos got 30%. Renamo got just 6%. The ruling party took all the provincial seats and took 195 out of all the 250 seats available in parliament, leaving just 31 to Podemos and just about 20 to Renamo, confirming the impression that what you have is the Frelimo dominating power for about 50 years in Mozambique. Observers say there was manipulation, there was rigging, but our fear is what will follow after.
They're still protesting.
Whether the protest declared by Mondlane on Thursday will continue, and whether there will be peace or whether the opposition will go to court. They have till December to do so.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for being by,
so
and
much.
have a great weekend.
You
It's
too.
a Friday. So next time
Take
is
me
on
wherever you're
Monday.
going.